Hey guys, Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for listening to our content and please like and subscribe. Welcome back to Pure Athlete. I'm Jeff Francoeur alongside Britt Lee and Brad Williams. And I'm so excited, guys, about today for a lot of different purposes. But, I have two daughters and they love playing sports. And we got a two-time Olympic champion, two-time World Cup and legend. Yes. My favorite, though, is the 3 goals against Japan. But Carli Lloyd, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, great to be here and looking forward to chatting.
Thank you. Before we get into talking about youth sports, I got to ask you, because I know you were in the Special Forces TV show, and you won it, by the way. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a wild experience. Hardest thing I've ever done, mentally, physically, emotionally. It was, everybody's always so curious to ask, what did you do in your off time? How were the cameras all set up? There was no off time. So once we started filming, there were no interviews, there was no glam, there was no craft services, there was no calls home. You really
Wow.
you went dark for as long as you were on the show, and the whole goal was obviously to complete the 10 days, which was a very, very watered down small percentage of what the Special Forces training course actually looks like, but we got a little taste of it, and yeah, it was harder than anything I've ever done.
Well, I think that's one thing we've always admired about you. I tell these guys all the time, I played baseball for 12 and a half years, and I failed all the time. I mean, in baseball, you are just, and the one thing we've admired about you is your grit. And before we get into that, tell us just your best youth sports memory that you can remember.
Best sports. Um, I would say just being free. I played I played multiple sports. I was uh, I was the oldest. I've got two other younger siblings, and I just lived and breathed sports. And soccer was obviously my most you know prized sport and possession that I was obsessed with. But I always just wanted to play sports. My younger sister, she was more into socializing and dolls and hanging out with friends, and it was just me and the ball. And that's my fondest memory is just playing in the backyard, going to the park, just having fun. Purely for the passion and the love of it.
So, Carli, let's dig into that a little bit. And I'd love for you just to kind of tell us. I read where you started playing soccer at 5, but can you just kind of walk us through your childhood as related to sports? And you said you played multiple sports. Can you just kind of start at an early age and walk us through that progression?
Yeah, so I started playing soccer at the age of 5. My parents just signed me up for it in our local town. I grew up in a really small town in New Jersey, Delran, New Jersey. A very working class neighborhood, blue collar mentality. Everybody knew everything about everybody. My parents had no background of soccer whatsoever. My dad, played baseball, and I think my mom was a cheerleader, which it's a bit debatable if that's a sport or not. But she was proud of that. There was no soccer for her to sign up for when she was younger. So yeah, I started playing at the age of 5. From what people tell me from a young age, I had something special about me. And as soon as I was introduced to the game of soccer, it was my first love, my first passion. Everywhere I went, I brought a soccer ball. My parents, believe it or not, never bought me a soccer goal to put in our backyard, which is wild because nowadays I feel like kids get every piece of equipment. And I keep telling the parents and the kids, it's not about what you have, it's the environment you create. And so I used to be on the kind of the side of our house. We lived on a corner house in our town, and I used to get creative. I used to bend the ball around a tree. I used to imagine a goal there. And then when I actually wanted to shoot into a goal, I would walk down to the local field and take shot after shot after shot, which I don't think is a coincidence that I always loved shooting from distance and had a pretty good shot growing up. I used to kick the ball against the curb in our front yard. The curb was obviously pretty small, so the margin of error, if you miss, you got to go chase the ball into the yard. So yeah, that's where it all began, and it wasn't just soccer. I played softball. I swam on our local swim team till I was 18. Basketball I played up until my junior year of high school, and played any other sport. If we were out with the neighborhood kids, I was throwing a football and we were playing football. If everybody was playing some roller hockey out in the street, I was doing that. I was constantly just introducing myself to all sports. And in gym class growing up, I got very competitive, and there's a lot of sweating going on. I had to get back into my clothes after I changed into gym class, but that's when my juices started to flow. And yeah, I mean, I just was a multi-round athlete, but soccer, was always the number one sport for me.
So you said it became apparent at a pretty early age that you had something special in soccer. Was that just athletic ability, and did that show up in other sports as well? I mean, were you one of the better players in any sport that you played?
Yes, definitely. I would say I think and this is an interesting thing. Is this a learned trait to some degree? Is this
Hmm.
something you're kind of born with? I just had this ability to not care if I failed at something. If I took a shot from the halfway line and midfield and I missed completely, I would try it again, and I would do it again and again and again. And so I think the idea of not not quitting after I can't do something for the first, second, or third time um, was indicative of just kind of how I was as a player back then. I mean, I would try any and all things. I would take risks. Um, Maybe those risks were the worst thing in the world sometimes, but at that age when you're young, you've got to have the freedom to be able to do those things, try those things. But with anything, whether it was throwing a football, if I couldn't throw a football and have a spiral, I would just keep doing it and keep figuring it out until I could do it. And so I think that kind of creates um, that burning desire within to want to be good at something. And it was every sport, whether we were climbing a rope in gym class, I was going to make sure I was getting to the top before everybody else. Whether it was dodgeball, I was going to make sure I was the last one standing. So I think that the idea of not getting discouraged about failing or messing up really kind of laid that foundation for me, and I just kept coming back for more to be able to grasp it.
What do you say to the parent? Misty May Trainer was on with us. I played with her husband on the Rangers, and we were talking to her because she went to Long Beach to play two sports, and she ended up being an unbelievable 3-time Olympic champion. Same thing for you. You played basketball, what you said, all the way till your junior year.
Hmm.
What do you say to these parents that are trying to specialize these kids at 8 years old, 9 years old? Because you're living proof you can play all these sports and still be the greatest on the biggest stage.
It's a hot topic. It's a huge debate. I think we're seeing a huge shift and a trend. And I think the specialized training is coming at too young of an age. When the kid is 3 or 4, let them be a kid. Let them go run around, have fun, fall, get back up again. But the problem is you're honing in and you're specializing these kids in certain sports. They're not only putting themselves at risk for an injury, because I believe that the different sports that you play, the different muscles that you start to build, and the awareness and the neurological alertness, all of that kind of plays a role. So if you're, for me with basketball, way different than soccer. You're playing with your hands, and so there's other coordination that comes into play that your body has to get used to. So I really believe that, of course, if you're going to be the best at anything, you've got to spend the most time doing that. I get that. But there's a certain age where you don't have to start doing that until a little bit of a later age. And I think you look at all the greats, people over the years. I mean, we talk about the greats of football, baseball, hockey, basketball, you name it. A lot of them did play a lot of other sports. And I think, the burnout factor comes into play because you're starting these kids in specialized training at a young age, and they're doing, not only are they doing school all day long, but then you're throwing them into another focus training session where they have to be told what to do instead of forming their mind to just be creative. I was super creative when I was younger. I would make up plays in my mind, and I would, act them out and visualize them out on the field and make mistakes, try different things. So I don't agree with the specialized training at a young age. I think that parents should allow their kids to be immersed in many different things. And then you're going to kind of see whether they have the talent and the love for it.
Yep.
For me, it was an easy thing for my parents. I never complained about going to soccer or any of my sports aside from swimming. I didn't love swim practice at early morning when you're jumping into a
Who
freezing
does?
pool.
I even the best swimmers don't enjoy swim practice. There's no way.
So yeah, I think I think they have to be immersed in many different things, and you got to hold off the specialized training and all of that.
Yeah.
So, Carli, you've touched on two or three topics that we want to dive into, like burnout and injuries
Yeah.
and so on and so forth at some point. I want to stick a little bit with your youth sports story right now. At what point did you know soccer's it? I'm going to keep playing some of these other sports, but soccer's the one that, when did you know you wanted to maybe play in college professionally? And what did that kind of look like? Did you play it year round? Because I know today's athlete, soccer, like many other sports, is just about year round. So talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so I obviously started playing at the age of 5. I was playing on my town rec team for a bit, and and then made the jump to play for the travel team, which got a little bit more serious, required a little bit more time, and then I came to a point, and it was probably maybe in 5th grade or so, where I had an opportunity to leave my town. And back then, that was unheard of. It was like, oh, you're leaving. Wow, why are you leaving our town? And so there was an opportunity. A coach was forming a team, and he was basically kind of recruiting all of the top players within the area. South Jersey, North Jersey, everywhere in Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware. And so, it was a decision that my parents had to make. They made the right one to, kind of pull me out of my town travel. And so, yeah, it was about 6th grade, I would say, which I forget the ages, what that is now at this point.
About 12.
Yeah, I was going to say 11, 12 is when I made that jump, and then it became pretty serious. We were training 2 to 3 times a week. We had games on the weekend. We were taking long haul trips to Florida, to Virginia, to all of the top tournaments where colleges are going to start to look at you, and you get on their radar. So I would say all of middle school, I knew that there was no question I wanted to play in college. Um, but I don't recall exactly the moment where, you know, I was in that kind of space in my middle school years where I said to myself, okay, I want to go play professionally. Until I went to the 1999 Women's World Cup game, which was one of the games was at Giant Stadium. And I remember watching that game. My mom dropped my sister and I off, left us, which is wild to think of these days. And
Yeah, you never do that now.
never. We're watching. I remember we were like up so high, but the national anthem was being played. The whole stadium was packed, red, white, and blue. Um, the jerseys, they had the names on the back of their jerseys, and I remember, thinking to myself, this would be unbelievable. And I think that's when my initial dream kind of started. I got to meet some of the players when we went down to the Jefferson Cup to play there. They were marketing the tournament, and it was really cool. It was my first kind of real live, game of being able to watch these women play. And from that point, it was college and just continuing to climb the ladder.
So, Carli, you're saying that by sixth grade, you kind of realized soccer was your thing, and you had an opportunity to at least play in college, but you kept swimming on your swim team. You kept playing basketball. Why do you think that was? Was it because you were from a small town? Was it because you knew soccer was your thing, but you still wanted to do these other sports? Why do you think that was?
Yeah, I mean, I think, soccer was, of course, year round for me, but it wasn't like how it is now. These kids are playing, it's criminal. They're playing 3 to 4 games on a weekend. How can you look forward to a weekend when you're playing that many games? We played 1, 2 tops where you're, going through the week of training and you're like, oh, this is amazing. I can't wait for the game. Now these poor kids are getting pulled in every which direction and having to play not only one game in one day, but then turn around and play another game with a small break in between. So even though I played soccer year round and it was pretty competitive and pretty serious, there was still some pockets of time that allowed me to do other things, being on the swim team. It was the summer. Soccer was a little bit slower around the summer. In the winter, soccer was a bit slower in the winter, so I was able to play basketball, and I loved basketball. Hated practices, hated all the plays. I just wanted to get the ball and drive to the basket, do a layup, shoot from the 3-point line. But I still was enjoying doing those things, and um, you know, it kind of gave you a little mental break to stop, doing soccer at that particular moment and change your focus and do something else. And then when you come back to soccer or basketball, you kind of look forward to it. So, yeah, it was just pretty much, swimming until I was 18, basketball up until my junior year of high school. And then it became too hard. So I decided
Yeah.
to give it a rest, but it was also with friends, not all of my friends played soccer. So there was a different group of friends that I was able to play basketball with and do that with as well.
A lot of academies or clubs today kind of discourage kids from playing for their high school? You played high school soccer, did you not?
I did or 4 years.
What would you say to kids about that today?
I think it's a tough one. I think from a female side and perspective, I think it's a little different than on the boys men perspective. The men and women's game is different, and I know that boys start really young and they get into these academies, and I almost think that they kind of need to start playing with older men as quick as they can so that they can adjust. So I don't know that high school would necessarily be the best for someone that's, potentially going to go on and play professionally. But on the girl side, the women's side, um, for me, high school gave me the opportunity to feel kind of special in high school, right? You know, you're going through your adolescent years, you're coming out of middle school, and there's people that are, bullying you or saying mean things about you. But then when you enter high school and you're an athlete, you suddenly go from here, all the way up to there, and you're like really cool. And then if you're really good and the team does well, everybody thinks you're really cool. So it kind of gave me that feeling of, okay, people were kind of knocking my athletic ability in my younger days and think it was kind of weird that I was sweating in gym class and all these things, and I'm not this girly girl. But here now I come to high school and everybody thinks I'm really cool, and so there was that factor to it. But then there was also the factor of, again, trying different things, not being under pressure to you know have to be perfect all the time. Being allowed, my coach allowed me to just kind of be me, be free. And I think that's where I gained a lot of my recognition, to be able to take over in big moments and big games, because I was given the confidence from my coaches and my teammates to know that, all right, hey, Carli, we're ready for you to kind of step it up a bit more. And so, yeah, I think it's more of the high school debate. I think is more of case by case. I don't think that you're necessarily probably going to get a lot better and learn by playing high school soccer, but those couple of pieces, it really kind of gave me that throughout my life, and obviously my path kind of worked out.
Yeah, and I think one of the cool thing is, I mean, you think about it, you're an outlier. I mean, for most people, they want to play through high school, and they're not going to get the opportunity to play in college and go, above. And that's what we always say with our kids. Their kids are obviously a lot older than mine, but
She
what we,
reminds us frequently.
yeah, but I want my kids to enjoy playing sports and the lessons that you learn, that you talked about, whether it's swimming and in basketball. But the one lesson that I try to teach, my daughter's 9. I coach her in a lot of different sports, but talk to me a little bit about grit, because one thing I love watching you play, you were tough, you were determined, you had the, I'm not going to take any crap attitude out there. Is that kind of, were you born with that, or were you kind of developed that as you grew in, to maturity?
I would say that I always played with a chip on my shoulder. I think the bigger the game, the bigger the moment, the bigger I rose. And it just fueled me more. It was just, you're playing under the lights in a high school game against a town rival. The juices just start flowing totally different. And that's what it was like with me. And so I think, kind of coming from a small town, not being pegged as the next best thing, not being handed anything, having to work for things. I think that just kind of gave me that bit of a chip on my shoulder that I had. But I think that I developed it to be able to do that consistently all the time, right? When moments came, and challenges and obstacles and doubters and all these different things, because of my preparation and because of my mantra of just being, doing things to be better every single day, and outworking everybody, allowed me to consistently be able to be able to do that over and over again. So I think that, yes, there's probably a bit of it that you maybe are born with, and then it's kind of up to you to see how you can use that to your advantage.
One thing we talk a lot too, Carla, is about like weight training and strengthening yourself. What for a lot of the young girls watching, and wondering kind of, when's a good age, do you think, for girls to start that kind of training, start getting to some weights and different stuff? What does that look like?
um this is another hot topic. I'm actually kind of against all the standard weightlifting that everybody does. I
Yeah.
remember not I was a very tall, lanky, skinny kid. I think I was 4'11" for a number of years, and then all of a sudden I grew. And I think that again we talk about the specialized training. I think that people are fooled to think that you need to start weight training at the age of 10. You don't need to.
Yep.
Your body is still developing, your muscles are still developing. If you play other sports, again, you're building more of a complete strength within your body. So I remember not really lifting until college. And I was at Rutgers University, and my freshman year, I could remember the football strength and conditioning coach working with us. Now that makes no sense. We're not football players. There's a big difference between how you need to be in soccer, which is lean, agile, able to move freely from side to side, forward, backwards. I don't need to be bulking my muscles and making myself stiff. And so I didn't like it. I didn't like it through college. I absolutely hated it. I didn't think that I felt great. I actually, put on some weight a little bit, probably from the late night eating as well. But then when I got into the national team, it was sort of the same thing. It was these standard, hang cleans, squats. And I remember, kind of feeling like I have to do it at first. And then I just kind of went rogue. So I went all body weight pretty much from 2008, 2007, 2008, all the way up to 2020. And I got injured during COVID. Had my first surgery in my career, just a little scope that I needed. And I got introduced to this guy that, was doing some weight training, but more functional soccer specific movements. And so I started training with him. And again, everything, your body, your muscles aren't in a straight line. Your muscles curve, they're all intertwined, they're all connected. And he did a lot of neurological, visual training as well. And so I trained with him from, 2020 all the way till the end of my career, 2021. And it was the best that I had ever felt. So I went from being completely against weights, but now there's a specific type of weight training that I think that you can do. And I think the neurological and your brain and your vision is all connected in a sense too. So I think putting off the weight training, can be, definitely a lot later than what people are incorporating now.
So that begs a question. You just talked about, you didn't have a surgery until really late in your career, which is, there's a pretty rampant trend of ACL tears among soccer players, and especially young women, from what I understand. What did you do to prevent that? Are there things that young girls especially can do to prevent, significant injuries, or were you just lucky?
No, I don't think I was lucky. It was all pretty much based on, I think, my youth days, again, doing multiple sports, creating that coordination amongst your body to be able to kick, run, throw, shoot a basket. There really isn't anything that I can't do. And, my husband was in the golf business, and it was really interesting when he was putting on some of these youth clinics. There were kids that didn't know how to throw a ball. I'm like, and there's, some research in golf of, multi-athletes and, but if you can't throw a ball, I mean, that to me is just there, you need a level of coordination. And so I think my youth days of kind of honing in the multiple sports, I didn't start weightlifting at a young age. It was, really not until I was in college. And then once I got to the pro level, it was doing things consistently over and over again. I was diligent with my water, diligent with massages, with ice baths, and my training. So all of my running and my fitness, I did more in my week from a load standpoint than what entailed in the game for the weekend. So when you do that over and over again, week to week, the game should actually be easy because I'm putting in all the work, days before. And it was plyometrics, it was agility, it was hill workouts, sand workouts, track workouts, long distance running, aerobic, anaerobic. There wasn't anything that I didn't do. And so with that, being able to do that on a consistent basis, I really believe is why the only injuries that I had were broken bones. And, they came at a point where I needed a break. I had one MCL sprain and I had one knee scope. And that was literally all of the injuries that I had. So to be able to have played all the way through my career, 39, it was because of all that. It's no accident. There's no luck. And I just really believe that, I obviously wasn't on a schedule that some of these kids are on from their youth days on up as well.
So, Carli, it seems like you really kind of enjoy, and I hate the word grind because it's overused, but you kind of enjoyed the workouts. You enjoyed the process of getting better. But did you ever come across a time where you really were close to a burnout?
Yeah, I mean, I love the grind. And I think the more that I did, and I kept kind of seeing the results and feeling how much better I felt, I just wanted more because I knew it was beneficial. I would have to say after the 2015 World Cup, my life changed. I had been on the national team for 10 years. I go and, we win a World Cup. I score 3 goals, a hat trick. My agent's phone was ringing off the hook. And all of the opportunities that came to me, it was all at once. And so from 2015, to 2016, maybe even into 2017 a little bit, I wasn't burned out from the sport. I was burned out from all the off the field other commitments. Not only did I have to grind, did I have to train, but I had to, leave training, fly to an appearance, do a speaking event, fly back, train the next morning. I was getting pulled in every which direction. And, looking back, I don't regret it because it was my future. It was, family's future. It was something that I had to do, and grateful for the opportunities. But I would say that was a moment of I'm tired. I got injured right before the 2016 Olympics. I got injured in my club season in 2017. So yeah, I really believe that those moments of being tired, of being overworked, it was a lot for me. And I can only imagine with some of these kids attending school all day long and going to a practice. And then your parents put you in another sport, and we're going to go to soccer practice. Then we're going to go to basketball practice or lacrosse practice. So it's really a disservice to the kids. But I don't think I was ever burned out from the sport that I was doing. But I also think my injuries came at a time where it was like, okay, you're not
Yeah.
going to take a break. We're going to force you into a break.
Yeah, you look. We talk about the World Cup and the Olympics, so I'm curious because swimming, gymnastics. It's for the most part, the Olympics is everything to that sport. But in soccer, you have so for you, what was the difference kind of the World Cup and the Olympics? What was one more exciting than the other for you?
They were both amazing. I mean, I've been asked this question,
Yeah,
what's better? They're both amazing. They're both a little bit different. World Cup comes before an Olympics. So it was our, World Cup every 4 years. And then on the heels of the World Cup, the next year was the Olympics. So I feel like every cycle that I started training for was kickstarting. All right, this is a World Cup cycle, and
Yeah.
there's more games, there's more teams. It's just soccer, so it's one of the biggest awards and tournaments you can ever win as a soccer player, and so there's nothing quite like a World Cup. There's nothing better. But then on the flip side, when you go for an Olympics, you're representing something more than just our crest, our U.S. soccer crest. It's the entire country, and there's a bigger team that you're part of. And a lot of people that don't necessarily watch soccer all the time will tune in because it's the Olympics. So they're both really special. It was difficult playing a World Cup and then having to quickly get ready for an Olympics. I'd be interested to see kind of if a World Cup and Olympics on the women's side, if it was, maybe had 2 years in between, if it would, be any different, or because it's been hard to win a World Cup and then turn around and win an Olympics. But yeah, they're both incredible.
What do you think about, the World Cup's coming up this year for the women? And I know a good buddy of mine, his wife, I guess Mallory Swanson now, right? No more Pew,
Yeah,
but
I know. Can't get used to that.
she's come. When I see the back of her jersey, it's still just, I'm like, who is that? But what are you thinking for them? How are they looking this year coming into it?
I think it's tough. I think that they're in a position where, there's some turnover. There's a lot of younger players who haven't experienced the world stage. And I think for the first time, with the national team, we've kind of seen this huge changeover, right? In 2015,
Yeah.
we had a lot of players retire, but we still kind of had the core group that had been around for a decade at least, continuing on. Now there's a lot of new faces. There's a lot of players Mallory Swanson, who's really coming into her own. Really thrilled to see her playing so well. I think, a player like her coming out of high school, not going to college, all the pressure that she had, all the deals that she signed, the expectations, it got to be a bit much. And so she was away from the team for a bit. Obviously, Dansby, I think, has helped play a role in kind of changing her mindset. But yeah, I mean, Mal's going to be an important piece to this team. But there's also some question marks still. They have a lot of injured players, ACLs, long-term injuries. Couple people, Crystal Dunn coming back from pregnancy, who's still trying to get herself, fit and ready. So it's going to be a matter of how this all comes together. They have 3 games left, so they have 2 games coming up in the April window. And after that, the roster is going to have to be selected. So I don't think I'd want to be Vlatko right now, because there's a lot of players who, again, have been out on ACLs, which you don't know how you're going to come back. And I really believe that it takes a good year for you to really start to feel like you're yourself again. And
Yourself.
And the competition is getting stronger and better. So while I think they're going to be favorites to win, and I think that they're capable of winning, there's still just a lot of question marks, and ultimately it doesn't matter what's happened prior. What the best team that can play their first game and end their 7th game and be the best team is the one that's going to win. So all else just doesn't really matter.
Carli, you did it so long. Is it going to be hard to watch and not be out there this time?
No, and I say that with 100% conviction. I am completely at peace. We talk about the grind. I got tired of the grind.
Yeah,
It is really nice to wake up every day, and I do still work out. I do still stay active. But yeah, I don't miss it. I mean, I put my body through just an excruciating amount of grind for 17 years. And, that's just on the professional stage. But to have, dedicated myself to the game for 34 years of my life, which is wild. It's been nice to actually live life, spend time with my husband, ski, four-wheel, golf, do that TV show, do all the things that I just could never do because I didn't want to risk injury. I'm completely at peace, and I was able to dictate when I wanted to leave the game, and I'm happy, I'm content. I fulfilled everything that I wanted to fulfill in my career. Could have always won more, but won some of them. So
You won a lot.
I don't think there's much more you could have won.
Well, and you got a built-in golf coach at home, right?
Yes. So yeah, I've went from soccer, kind of playing at a high octane, speed, to then golf, where it's a stationary ball and it's incredibly hard to hit it straight and long and far. But I'm
I was
staying
going to say,
committed
you
to
want
the
to talk about
process.
failure. That golf,
Yeah.
that sport, you fail almost every. But finishing up, we got a couple questions for you here. Finishing up, what is your biggest piece of advice to young athletes, not just even female, but young athletes that are listening as they try to, fulfill their dream?
I would say two things. I think, failure, I can't say enough about failure. People are so afraid to fail. They're so afraid to be uncomfortable because they're not going to be good at something. But failure is such an important piece to growing and learning. And I think when you can accept failure and still get back up time and time again, you're going to be so much better off. And the lessons that you can extract from failure really just kind of comes, deep within yourself. So I think that's an important thing. I mean, obviously working hard, you've got to work hard at anything you do. And that's not just, one day, maybe another day here and there. You got to grind, you got to work hard all the time. And then the third thing I would say is the expectations that you place on yourself. They can oftentimes be paralyzing to your potential. And so if you can just try to release the expectation and just try to be a bit better every single day, I think that it'll make for a better process and you'll enjoy it more. It's a very, very tough thing to do, but I think it's really important.
And final question, what is your best advice to these coaches out there that are coaching these young athletes?
Well, coaches, it's not about you, it's about the kids. I think that's the number one thing. Check your ego out the door. You're not Pep Guardiola, you're not reinventing the wheel. It's about the kids. And I think what we're missing is not every kid is going to turn professional. There's a very small percentage there. It is their job to teach those kids how to be better human beings. And if they teach them to be better human beings, like respecting people, being a good teammate, learning from failures, getting back up, working hard, if they embrace that teaching, it's actually going to make them a better soccer player too, or a better basketball player, or any other sport, you name it. So I think the most important thing is just teach them to be good human beings, and let them play freely, let them enjoy it, let them mess up and try again, and just encourage them along the way.
That's great.
Great advice.
We can't thank you enough for joining us today. Before we let you go, though, we have 10 quick little rapid fire questions called Keeping It Real with Carli Lloyd. Are you ready?
All right, ready.
The best TV show you've watched in the past year? Not that you've starred in, but that you've watched.
I'm going to have to say it's like Yellowstone, 1923, 1883. I got all three of them.
Yeah. Any of them? All right, that's good. The team you would most like to play and beat in a gold medal game?
Ooh, probably. Gosh, that's a hard one. I don't know. Probably. I think the way England's playing right now, if I were still on the team, they'd be the team I'd want to beat.
Nice. If you could have dinner with one person you've never met, who would it be?
Mm, one dinner. I don't know. I'll go with Kevin Costner since we're on a Yellowstone theme.
Perfect. Good answer. Your favorite fast food restaurant?
Probably Shake Shack.
Oh gosh, yeah, I love Shake Shack. It's so good. Your favorite stadium you've ever played in?
Mm, Probably will have to say Wembley. I played in there twice just because of how iconic it is, and won
Yeah,
twice there. So got a good record going
that's
there.
even better. Your favorite movie of all time?
Oh man, of all time, probably I'm gonna have to say Goonies.
Oh, and that's such a good. My daughter watched it for the first time a couple weeks ago. It's so
Oh,
good.
nice.
Athlete you looked up to growing up?
Um, Michael Jordan when I was younger, and then I'd probably have to say Kobe Bryant.
Nice. Top two artists on your playlist?
Mm, Probably Taylor Swift. I like a little Ed Sheeran too.
Oh, nice. Favorite vacation spot?
I'd probably have to say the Maldives. Went there shortly after my retirement. It was breathtaking.
Yeah, makes you want to move there, 100%.
Yeah.
Uh, and last question for you: your most memorable goal ever?
Have to say my midfield shot in the 2015 World Cup final. Wasn't necessarily the best goal I scored, but haven't scored another one like that. So
Awesome. Well, this is called Keeping It Real with Carli Lloyd. Thanks again for spending time with us
Carli,
today.
we really appreciate it. Thank you
yeah,
so
no
much.
problem.
Thank you,
It's
Carli.
great
This was great.
topics and great to chat.
Hey guys, Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for checking out Pure Athlete, and subscribe to our channel on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you go to listen to our podcast.